Everybody, BobbyFi and Eric Sheets-Haber. We're going to be talking through Saturday's NFL slate, the two-gamer for a preview. It's an interesting little two-gamer, a little bit strange, so we're going to have to try and find some things that get a little different here. Sheets, any overall thoughts before we start jumping into it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys out. Pittsburgh guys are out. You have Mason Rudolph starting, right? Pickett remains out. You have Jamar Chase out for Cincinnati. The Chargers are first-time new coach, I believe. So that usually provides a little bit of an upgrade. But they're a 2-touchdown underdog. So, yeah, it's gonna be. I don't know how tough it's gonna be to get different. I think it's hard. It's just gonna be hard to get it right. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's sort of where I'm at as well. So, with that said, let us, I guess, jump right in.
How do you want to handle this? I mean,
go game by game, I think, and just talk about the two games, and then we can figure it out. Like maybe talk about some places at the end.
Okay, so let's clear this for a second. I guess I'll just start. Let's talk about what we know. All right, so we know that. Listen, Browning has taken on the responsibilities over there in a very admirable way, and very serviceable, and he's had a. He's used his weapons the way that the coach has been drawing it up, and I certainly don't see any reason why that's not going to continue. Now, the weapons are a little different today, but, with Chase out, I think it's very reasonable to, start a lineup with Browning and Higgins and either Boyd or Trent Irwin or both. I think that makes a lot of sense. I can't quite ever get the tight end roulette right. I mean, I guess Tanner Hudson is the top guy. So, I mean, you can play him as well if you want. Again, it's a 2-game slate. For a showdown slate, I would say maybe take, you could play Samuel Sample or the other guy, Wilcox, whatever. But 2 games, I think, I don't know, Hudson seems like enough. And then, okay, so Joe Mixon. I mean, all these guys look like good plays here. Yeah. Chase Brown at 4,900. He continues to get some high efficiency looks. Pretty explosive guy. I think the Pittsburgh side of it is pretty rough, man. I have to say, like, Mason Rudolph stinks. I guess he's got Pickens. Pickens is cheaper than Johnson. I guess things are the same.
Johnson's much more productive than Pickens.
Is he? I guess so. And the same issue I always have with these running backs. I'd rather play Mixon than pick between Warren and Harris. But again, it's 2-game slate, so you can be a little more, a little more creative, I guess. But then you got James Cook in the other game. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I want to be picking between these two guys. Freiermuth seems like probably the safest receiver to play on Pittsburgh. I don't know. That's my overall assessment of this game for now.
Yeah, it's there's going to be a lot of chalk, and I'll just say that if there's a game to shoot out, I don't think it's going to be this one. These games tend to be very low scoring, and I would rather take shots on the other game just because of the ownership here. I have the number one play in this game as being T. Higgins and Pat Freiermuth. Those are my 2 guys that I will eat the chalk on. I do think, obviously, it's hard to ignore Mixon. What I will say is there is no way I'm not playing Chase Brown today, tomorrow. He's 4,900. It's look, they're using him in, for some big plays. There's a lot of ways things could go, wonky, and he ends up getting more run. He's in there on 3rd down. He breaks one play. Maybe he gets you there. So he's kind of an interesting pivot off of the Pittsburgh stuff. Or you play him with one of the Pittsburgh guys and James Cook, maybe as a way to go. I really do think that Chase Brown is like the only thing I could see in this game as a way to get different, because everything else is going to have ownership. What I would say, though, is also Trent Irwin, while he projects well, maybe you take a shot on Iasivis or whatever instead.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's something.
So there's another thing you could do to get different, right? If you needed the 3K guy. And I'm just saying, like, I think that why can't he outperform? He doesn't have to do much to outperform Irwin. We don't know that Irwin's going to do much. So I like the idea of maybe doing something like that. Or even like I actually considered Calvin Austin on the other side because it's a small slate. Maybe it's more for showdown, but it's almost a showdown-y slate anyway. So Freiermuth is my favorite. Deontay Johnson is my second favorite. Third is Pickens. And then the running backs, I prefer I prefer Harris over Warren on this slate because I think there's a better chance of, I don't know, actually. They're underdogs. It's pretty close between those two for me. But the way that I think that if I play those guys, if I play one of them, the way I'm going to get different a little bit is play Chase Brown on the others as my other running back and probably use Cook in the late night game.
Yeah, it's good enough for me. You think these Pittsburgh guys are going to get ownership?
Yeah. It's just too hard not to have everybody get ownership on this slate, I guess. All right. Now we go to the rebound, the newly found Bills. But one thing I want to point out before we talk about this game, the Bills are like legendarily famous. They're getting there. They're sort of like the old Chargers used to be. They're obviously a good football team, but they will play to their competition. They play to their level a ton of the time. I know they got the big win, against Dallas, and they smoked them at home and all that stuff. But I'm telling you, I've watched it over and over again with them all year. They will just play to whatever their competition is for the most part. And if you're playing an awesome team, that's great. If you're playing a team that's really struggling, maybe they play down a little bit. So what are your thoughts on this one, Sheets?
Yeah, I'd love to make that case. I really would. I'd love to make the case that the Chargers are going to play well for their new coach. I'd love to make the case that Buffalo, traveling 3,000 miles, on the road, is going to stop the momentum. I just don't know if I can do it. The Chargers just seem so freaking broken. I don't know. I'm not an Easton Stick believer. These are just two teams in completely different directions. Buffalo has gotten their act together and they're making a serious run. I think if they can make the playoffs, you know what I mean, to do some damage in the playoffs. There's the AFC. I mean, I think is very vulnerable. I think that Buffalo is just as good as anybody in this conference except for the Ravens. So I think they're coming out there. I think they mean business. I think the Chargers are just going to have a very, very difficult time. I think James Cook is, going to be a tremendous play. Even Stephon Diggs, I like him. Shakir, I like him. Davis. I think Buffalo is really going to be able to do whatever they want here. Now, Quentin Johnson is going to show up as a good value at $4K. So I guess he's going to be like where I get, ownership, right? Like right now, I do have Quentin Johnson, if I ran my stuff right now, at 57%, at 4K, sure. I mean, listen, you're building lineups. I think that's totally fine as a one-off, but I wouldn't, if I'm going to try to get contrarian, I just don't think it's going to be by flipping the script in this game. I'm playing too much of the Chargers. I haven't seen Eckler gain a yard, it seems, in like a season. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm going to do here, but I think I'm going to be a sucker and just play the Buffalo side and very, very little, if anything, for Chargers.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely go the opposite route just because I can't eat all the chalk. Like
I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to keep James Cook out of your lineups. And by the way, the projection, I call bullshit on the projection. I have no idea why he's not projected way better. Like honestly, he's projected at 15 as a medium. Are you kidding me? This should be like a projected medium of like 24 with him right now. You know what I mean? I don't know how the hell he's supposed to only get 15 tomorrow. I'd be stunned if he had 15 fantasy points. And if he did, he's a good fade. Again, the get weird play here for me, and that's sort of what I'm focusing on because, okay, I like Cook. He's probably going to be in most of my lineups. The get weird one would be hope Latavius Murray maybe gets a thing, but he's just not cheap enough. You know what I mean? Like you're still competing with the Pittsburgh guys and even Chase Brown. But I'm just trying to find ways to get different. So I thought I would throw that out there. I think Gabe Davis is going to be very low owned, and he hasn't caught a pass in 2 weeks. If you want to try and get things back on the right track for the guy who's the best blocking receiver on your team, maybe that Gabe Davis gets the looks today. And again, he's not going to be super low owned, but he is going to be the lowest owned of the viable receivers they have. Shakir, I'm totally fine with, but he'll probably be, a little bit low. Like the fact that people are going to play Trenton Irwin so much more than Shakir, maybe it works out well. Maybe it's exactly wrong. Maybe we should not play either of them or play somebody else. But I don't know that Irwin is going to be the guy for me on this slate anyway. So those are the Davis to get different. I like both tight ends, but Kincaid would be obviously the priority one. On the Chargers side, I really want to play and pretend this game is going to be close. Which means,
I know how.
Yeah, which I mean, like I'm going to genuinely consider Easton Stick this week.
All right.
And I don't even think that's going to be that different. Like, shit. I would like to. I wish it was. People are going to play Eckler like crazy, and he just keeps doing nothing. Just throwing it out there. I am probably going to play some Eckler, but I have him below the other guys. Josh Palmer. Do you have Johnston at that high ownership sheets?
That's what I'm getting.
Oh, got it. Yeah, yes. Because I like Johnston
I would be getting 60% of him right now, and I'm getting him owned about 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will take another guy who you can get creative with. I think you could decide between these guys, but I would say Jalen Guyton because you could hope for one big play.
Oh, there you go.
And maybe Alex Erickson. I mean, again, just trying to find things to get different. Gerald Everett is going to have a bunch of ownership. Maybe play a weird Stone Smart double tight end lineup or something. I'm just thinking of things because
he got in a couple of snaps last week.
Yeah, and they like to run their goal line plays for other tight ends. So sometimes you get something out of that.
LOL goal line. You got to get there first.
No, right, exactly. And but at the same time, like let's not kid ourselves. This Buffalo Bills team is not a great they played great last week again. Let's not overreact to it, in my opinion. And I also don't think the Chargers are going to have another performance like they did. The problem I'm having is that basically this is going to be like a home game for the Bills.
Yeah.
The Bills Mafia, those people travel like crazy. It's a huge game for them. Yeah. And in LA, it's kind of tough for Easton Stick to get there. But by the way, Easton Stick, for what it's worth, I mean, he can get there. Like I know it was all garbage time last week that he got there, but maybe they let him start off throwing the ball a little bit more and play a little bit more aggressive style. So maybe Easton Stick and Mason Rudolph stacks are the way to go, just because everybody's going to play Allen and Browning. For what it's worth, I think that I would play. I mean, the number one quarterback should easily be Josh Allen, but I just think you have different builds if you try not to do that, and if you try not to play Diggs and play Davis instead, you're getting significantly lower ownership, and that's probably something I'll do. I even wouldn't cross off guys like Sherfield and especially Deontay Hardy on these slates. Maybe it's more for showdown also, but I really think that like getting weird and leaving money on the table is something that you can definitely do tomorrow.
The only thing I would say though is that if you're going to play like the Buffalo side, if you're going to play, I don't want to say narrative, whatever it is, but listen, like you said, every game is like critical for Buffalo right now,
Right.
And I just don't, and I talked about this in a couple of showdown slates recently. These teams are just not going to screw around with these fringe guys. I don't think. I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Josh Allen, a heavy dose of James Cook, a heavy dose of Stephon Diggs, and whoever's open between, you know what I mean, Gabe Davis and Kincaid and Shakir. You know what I mean? Like I think that all the fringy Buffalo guys. Look, you can play. I think Latavius Murray is an interesting play. You know what I mean? Because I think that if they do just put the hammer on them, there's literally no reason to keep James Cook in the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you can get another one out of Latavius Murray. But it doesn't seem like Buffalo's like in the mood right now to like screw around. I have a feeling like San Francisco could maybe screw around, like to get the right guys the touchdowns if they need to. I think Buffalo is just going to just do their thing, give it to the top guys, and just kind of let it go. And again, I'm trying to visualize the path for the Chargers. Buffalo, they're going to drop into that stupid zone, and Easton's going to get a ball tipped. And you know what I mean? I don't know. It's going to be I think it's going to be a tough day.
Yeah, it probably is, but I'm going to have to.
And I know that's unfortunately that's going to. But you know what I'm going to be doing, like for real, is I'm going to run my lineups, and then I'm going to do an ownership limitation where I just get what I get. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I put my actual thoughts on these games, I'd end up with like Quentin Johnson, like no other Charger. I mean, really, that's what I would end up with.
Yeah, I hear you. So, I mean, those are the one poor Palmer or Guyton. So I have like my get weird plays because I think it's the only way to do it. Like, I mean, Chase Brown,
Yep.
Tanner Hudson,
Yep.
these aren't so weird. Gabe Davis and Shakir, but again, you're going to be low. If you can get guys in the teens of ownership, that's you're doing a good job because it's very, very, very a lot of heavy chalk you're going to be dealing with. I think Johnston or Palmer. I like this stick idea just because I think that there is enough upside, and I think he could even get there in garbage time as he did last week. Jalen Guyton, Calvin Austin, Connor Hayward. These are all the guys who I'm using to try to get just a little bit weird.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, the real thing in this structure to get weird or whatever that's going to win is play Chargers defense. You know what I mean? And is that Josh Allen? He can lose his mind from time to time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, and even like in his wins recently, there's been a lot of like kind of like real funny improvisational plays, which listen, you want when you have him. But if you don't, you know what I mean. But if you're against a team that you're like 100-point favorite over, the last thing you want is that stuff to be going down. Mm-hmm. And if you get like a 2-game slate where the Chargers are like 8% owned defense, you know what I mean, or whatever they're going to be. I mean, look, you can make really good cases for Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, right? Everybody's going to play both of them,
right?
And obviously, people are going to just jam in Buffalo, right? I really think that on a 2-game slate, you might get a sub 10% owned defense. And just because the way defense, just that ball tips and it rolls funny sometimes, I think that the Chargers defense is a good way to go.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. I think that's probably. And by the way, you can play the Chargers defense in a Bills stack. Like it's a 2-gamer.
Oh, yeah, two games, everything's up.
Yeah, hope for one play and hope for one weird defensive touchdown and then maybe 3 or 4 sacks. Like that's totally. And by the way, Josh Allen will get sacked because he'll try even the design runs. If they don't work, they're going to be sacks. You know
that's a pretty good point for a 10% defense.
Like, there's some cases to be made, I think there. So anyway, we've got some funny stuff to do. I think you're going to have to want some funny business to have much of a chance, but I don't think you should overdo the funny business together. I just think like getting a little like. A little bit of these some of those names that I mentioned, and as Sheets mentioned, the Chargers defense. Those are like the ways you can get different enough to have a chance in the slate. And the other one I'm going to say again, it is going to be leaving money on the table. I don't see why that's not an option on this 2-gamer.
What's the Bengals record?
They're now basically out of it. Oh no, they're not actually. Let me just grab my. I haven't looked at the
Because one thing I will tell you about your Chase Brown play, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they legitimately, because I had like some mixing in that game. They legitimately like started. I think they started with Chase Brown in the game. It was like really, it was like almost bizarre. Like I think they really think that he's the future over there.
That might be. And
if in fact, I don't know, he's certainly more explosive than Mixon right now. I'll tell you that Mixon, he still runs hard. I mean, he still does. But I like that. I like the Chase Brown. Okay, so here's something you can do. So I think that people are going to play some Warren and Harris together. So if you want to play like Mixon and Brown together, I don't know.
Yeah, or what about both the running backs? What about just go all cheap, skip Cook, and hope somehow it doesn't get there, and you play the 2 Pittsburgh running backs with him.
Right.
By the way, the Pittsburgh game is a big game. The Bengals are 8-6. The Steelers are 7.
Okay.
And they're in the toughest division with the Browns and Ravens. That's a really good division. Jesus. So it's basically a must win for everybody for both those teams. So it's a must win for everybody except for the Chargers.
So as far as content goes, first of all, the games are late tomorrow. I mean, game 1 is 4:30, and then like an 8 or something like that. I'm probably not going to be around, but I'll put updated sheets out at some point before the first game. And you know what? I think I'm going out to dinner tomorrow, so I will be available at some point in between to update projections at least. Mm-hmm. You never know. I might throw up a showdown video up for one or both of those games just to see my builds again, just to see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or how I do it. More to the point. And then Sunday, 11 o'clock, we'll be celebrating your big win from Saturday.
Hopefully.
And what we're going to do, we're going to do a springboard. We're going to have you win 200,000 Saturday, and then $1 million on Sunday.
There we go. That sounds good to me.
All right, sounds good to me too. And I'll chop the late showdown slate for 11,000.
Yeah, that'll work. All right. Good luck to everyone this weekend. If I can get to anything for live for tomorrow, I'll do it. But it's pretty much going to be a similar thought process to what we have right now. I don't think we're going to have a bunch of.
We'll see you at 6 tonight, though.